Alright, welcome everybody. I figured since we just had the ultimate recruitment event that we just talk about one of the roles that you could make if you weren't just gonna run DPS but just tank. Um, there's a lot involved with tanking because there's different power sets that do different things when it comes to tanking. Fire, we have our self heals. Um, Rage, same thing. Their mechanic, ice with their shields. So there's a lot of different mechanics when it comes to the type of tank for you to use. So this isn't a step-by-step guide on every power set for tanking that may come at another time, but this is more so on things to look out for, certain things to do, some staples to have when tanking. Um, for tanking, everyone's going to be a little bit different from where they put their stat points. Personally, I put my stat points in superpowered just because of the power, so that I never run out. Since you're consistently using your powers to do pulling, bring the ads towards you, and keep your immunity going, I'd rather have the 25% power regeneration plus a 10% power over the 5% Dom, Resto, and Vite. So for everyone, it's a little bit different. That's just what I'm comfortable with doing, so that's what I run. But for tanking, in my opinion, artifacts are definitely important, but skill points are going to be important as well because, the more health that you have, um, the longer you'll stay alive. You may run into a oh shit moment where something happened and you weren't able to pop your immunity or your shield ran out, and the more health you have, the better off you have with surviving certain attacks. So that's what I would do. Skill points are important, so try to grab them as much as you can. Um, Knowing your mechanics as well, knowing for your power set what works and what you need to do. The Ultimate Recruitment event is definitely a great event because it gives you the opportunity to start from scratch and actually learn your power since you have to level it up. You don't just have the opportunity to create a character and skip to level 30, level 378, 478, whatever the number is. This gives you an opportunity to go through the introductory levels and grab each power and see what it does. So with that being said, um, you know, level 10, everyone is granted the tank role that has a tank power set. So for fire, this is the attributes that I get for being in the tank role as fire. 50% health, 50% income and healing while not blocking, 3% perception, fire soul, and the taunt abilities cost 30%. That's power. So the fire soul is I gain 35% defense while not blocking. And as I directly damage burning enemies, the bonus increases to a maximum 60%. So the more that I'm not blocking, the more that I have my enemies burning, the more defense that I'll get. So that's important. So going through the levels, learning what powers are usable and work well for tanking. You know, if I was leveling up a new character and as you get a new level, you get new powers, okay, detonate. You're damaging enemies. You can damage enemies, but you're not controlling the enemies and keeping them where they need to be, because that also is an aspect of tanking. So as you go through there, you see the power, see what you need. Okay, immolation is a shield. And in tank role, greatly increases shield value. So, however, shield absorbs 35% of damage taking. But you see, for tank role, it's something that will keep you survive and keep you alive. So survivability is definitely important when you're tanking. So this is definitely something that you need to look into when you're focusing on tanking and thinking about that. We'll get into arts in a little bit, but the main thing that you need to do when focused on tanking, aside from putting together your loadout, is knowing what you need. So every tank is going to need a pull. It's very important because you need to keep the ads together, get the attention of the boss or whatever the enemy is at the time. So I have my pull on. So I can consistently try to group the ads together. Personally, for me, I also put on my single target pull. I just like to have it. You could have a breakout there instead, but that's what I like to run. I like to always have my single target pull in my loadout. Aside from that, remember when I talked about, shielding yourself and making sure that you can survive. So I do have Immolation, which is a shield, and I also have Heart Light Shield. So I have two shields on my loadout to, make sure that I can survive as much as possible. Not to mention, well, we'll get into allies in a little bit, but also my supports and my trinket belt help me as well when it comes to staying alive, because your main focus is staying alive. So Boo Jr., even though it's a low level ally, Boo Jr. grants a shield, so that helps. For fire, we need stuns to stun the ad. So here's a chronometric emitter, excuse me, which helps stun the ads, so keeps them together, which keeps everything together. And then I use the Envirotech for the healing bonus. So these things, keep me alive. So you need to find out for you what you're able to grab. The Boo Junior trinket or the Boo trinkets came from Halloween. They may be in the broker, they may not. So that may not be something that's viable for you right now. You might not be able to acquire it, but just look for things that will help you. So that's going to be important as well to make sure that what's in your utility belt is something that keeps with survivability, or, well, in grouping the ads together and making sure that they're dazed or stunned or whatever it is, that also helps with survivability. So these are important. And I use a buff trinket. Right now I'm using the might trinket because I haven't had the opportunity or the ability to buy the health buff trinket yet, but I use it for my allies. So we'll go into allies next. For tanking, there's many different allies you can use. A lot of people will use Superman for we'll go for supports now. We're talking about supports. A lot of people will use Superman for the breakout ability because you do get a shield. Um, let's see, in tank role, using a group breakout ability gives you and all your allies a damage reduction shield, which lasts for 6 seconds. Excuse me, 6 hits or 30 seconds, whichever is reached first. And when you have Superman maxed, you get a 35% damage reduction shield and a 30-second cooldown. So that's very important to make sure that you have a shield. So Superman is a potential ally that you can use. I use Constantine simply because of his support. Runic Recourse. Runic Recourse using a stat buff trinket. So if you use a might buff trinket, a health buff trinket, whatever boosts your stats, you'll get instant power return, power regeneration, and a shield protecting you from damage. So, even though it's a might trinket, if I pop my might trinket, I have a shield. So I have another instance where I'm using a shield to help keep myself alive, keep damage off me, and make sure that I'm able to survive even longer. So these things are important. So as I said, Boo Jr. gives me a shield. The Constantine ally gives me a shield. Static, I use static because you also get a shield. Let's go to details. In his combat ability, Electro Shield Punch launches an explosive charge projectile, damaging enemies, and then protects you with a damage reduction scrap shield for 10 seconds. So it's 10 seconds of another shield, so another thing to keep me alive. So that's what I use. I'm debating on what to do because right now I'm running Batman Who Laughs, because you get a card which gives you a different buff. So the buff that I'm hoping to get more than often than not is the health buff or the might, dominance, restoration buff. All of them are beneficial and they help. So that's why I'm running. I was running Lex because Lex is also strict primarily for tanks. With the Exabyte Overdrive, increases Dom, Resto, Vite, and defense for 15% for 15 seconds when your health is below 50%. But consistently, I didn't want to run that because not always will your health get in. It may more times than not get below 50%. But with the cooldown, it wasn't something that was consistently up for me, so I didn't really want to use that, so I stopped using that. And there's other allies in here that you can use with tanking. Do I have her? Nubia? No. I don't think it was Nubia. I think it was Queen Diana, but um, you know, Tikal. When you perform a lunge, you'll get 50% of your max health. So there's a lot of different allies that can use. You also, so it just all depends on what you're able to acquire, which allies you have, and what works for you and what you're able to level up. So if you're going to use a group breakout, then definitely Superman is one you should use because you're going to get that shield, and that shield is highly beneficial to everyone involved with it. So once you figure out that part of it, and you know where to spec your abilities, I get 50% increase in health in the tank role. So if I'm just in DPS, my health is at 1.1. Now it's at 1.5. So there's a health difference in my base health. Now, arts. There's many different arts for tanking. So I'm not going to tell you on what you have to use because I can't tell you what you have to use for your abilities. I'll just tell you what I believe are staples and ones that you may want to use above others, and then you just make the decision on what works. Let's see, we have 14 different combinations of artifacts that you can use. So we'll just touch on them. So the Mystic Symbol of 7. For me, I have this in my loadout right now that I'm running for tank. Let's see, when hit by enemy, increase your defense by 5% for each enemy within 5 yards. Increase healing, received by 10%. Regenerate a small amount of health based on restoration each time you're stuck by enemy, with a quarter of a second cooldown. So my defense is already 582,000, so I'm gaining defense while I'm attacking the enemies. Plus my power set, I'm gaining more defense, so this is definitely a staple for me. That's one of the ones that I think is a staple. Red Tornado. Red Tornado is beneficial as well. The grants you 25% might and 12.5% precision. It's helpful because you're helping burn a boss, but that's not your primary role, is to bring the boss's health down. Your primary role is to make sure that you're controlling the raid. You're the quarterback. So you want to pick where things are going, where they should be going, so you're trying to control the field. So Red Tornado can help, but this isn't your primary point of view, isn't your primary job to increase your damage. So that first one is secondary in the list, but damaging enemies heals you for 50% of the damage done. So they work in tandem. So that as well, because you're getting healing while you're running this artifact. And also there's a bonus to it. Upon taking damage equal to 225% of your Dom plus 285% of your resto, you'll pulse out a restoration redistribution tornado, dealing damage equal to 70% of Dom and 70% of restoration to all nearby enemies. So that also is beneficial because it's going to do more damage, which in turn is going to help the group finish the raid faster. So it's something to have. I'm using it right now just because of I do damage the enemies, so it is something that I'm running right now in my loadout. Then Manacles. Manacles is another one. I don't know if I'll say it's a staple. I know many people that do have it, so it may be a staple. But capable of blunting the strongest attacks, these Manacles put you in an unshakable state for 5 seconds when an attack damages for at least 30% of your health. It absorbs 50% of incoming damage and reapplies over the next 5 seconds. That cooldown is 45 seconds, but when unshakable triggers, the following ability cooldowns are reset. So basically all the shields are reset. So for fire's immolation, for atomic it's density, gemstone shield is for earth, Redirected Rage is for Rage. Winter Ward is for Ice. So all shield cooldowns are reduced by 10% also. So your shield is consistently going to be up with this artifact. So this is another one that I use because even when you're not blocking, you want to stay alive as much as possible. So immolation, being able to be used again, it's definitely something that I like to have in my loadout. And hard light shield. So this is something that I run. We'll go to I also run Everyman Prototype because I'm gaining, let's say for when your health fluctuates, you gain more defense. So if you're in the 75 to 51% range, you'll gain 4% of your max health converted to defense. And then when you're lower, 9%, and under 30%, you'll get 12%. So, 10%, well, it wasn't 10%, it was realistically you can be in the 75 to 51% a lot. So you'll get 4% of your max health. So I'll get 4% of 1.7 million health converted to defense. So that definitely helps with survivability. So that's something else that I run, since we're focused on defense. And right now I am running Transformation Card. And I'm running Transformation Card because of the 30% critical magnitudes on attacks and heals. So, and 20% critical chances. But anyway, I run Transformation Card simply because you get that extra boost on your healing, and it definitely works well for what we do as fire with our self-healing. So those are the artifacts that I'm using now. The other ones that you can use and you can look into using, it just all depends on what you're thinking about using. You do have Delistil Refractor, and what that does is hitting enemy with a pull grants you and 7 of group members health to equal to 20% of your dominance. So my dominance is at 174,000. Right now my health is at 1.7. So this I can show you. If we take off Transformation Card and we add the Delistil Refractor, it's at 1.74. I hit an enemy with a pull. My health went up to 1.8. Well, it's not permanent through the instance. It's in until the reset hits. And there we go again. I'm back down to 1.7. $1.8. So 700,000. So also another beneficial power that you could use. I wouldn't say to use it, but it's just something that you could use if you had it from before, or if you had an alt that was using or whatever. It's something that I don't know what other alt will use it, but it's something else that you can use. We also have Lazarus Pit. I only have it to rank 80 right now, but it's definitely a great artifact because if you have it maxed out, you can revive to rally yourself once every 5 minutes. So when you die, you can resurrect yourself. So that's an amazing ability, super strong. Probably a staple that everyone should have in their back pocket to use because everyone can wipe in some of the harder Elite Plus raids. So definitely something to look into getting, something to work on because we have 5 arts. So definitely something that you should think about working on if you have the time, you have the extra nth metal. It's something that could be worked on. Also, we have Cersei's Mask. For some power sets, this is amazing. When your shield is broken, your incoming healing is increased at max levels at 30%. So for some power sets, it works. I don't think that my shields get broken enough to use it. So for me, I haven't had a chance to level it up because I don't think it's beneficial to my power set. Immolation, Hard Light Shield, Constantine Shield, the Boo Shield. There's lots of shields going on. So, and then with Mystical, not mystical, with manacles proccing and renewing your shield. For me, that's not something that I find beneficial. Some tanks, I believe it's atomic, they have their supercharged shield, but there's some tanks where they're running supercharge. So, you know, scrap and they're gonna work well. Scrap restores your supercharge, so you'll be able to use your supercharge more. Um, and Eye of the Gemini, EOG, when you're in tank role. Um, let's see, tank or healer role, Caster's Watch, not Gemini's Vision, but Caster's Watch. Well, Gemini's Vision uses supercharge in combat attracts Caster's Watch or Public's Gaze for 4 or 6 seconds at max. Cooldown is 6 seconds. So Caster's Watch, what that does is restores at max level 6% health and 3% supercharge every second for supercharge abilities costing 25, 5,000, 10,000 respectively. When Caster's Watch expires, all friendly players within it are healed for the amount of health restored by Caster's Watch. Standing Caster's Watch grants you 5% Dom health and restoration. So you're healing yourself, you're doing a lot having that. So EOG and Scrap of Soul Cloak working in tandem is another set of artifacts that you could potentially use to work. I threw Heart of Ice in there after watching Solarius because he's used it and with success because of all of the bonuses that you get with it. So this is something there's a lot of different I have to go into icon power so I can show you. Do I have any skill points? I do. You have to get Word of Power. And then once you have Word of Power, you have to equip Isis. And then when you go to your traits, you have it. So it's 1,000 supercharge cost, and then tank roll you get increased vitalization, critical healing chance, 10% health and defense, 10% minor precision. Now at rank 200 is 20% vitalization, 25% critical healing chance, 20% health and defense, and 20 and 10% might and precision. So if you're using a supercharge, this is definitely something that he's shown to be beneficial and helpful, and it's actually a great artifact if you're a tank ability that's running a supercharge. So it's another option that you can have. Lasso of Truth is potentially an option. I don't like it because you have to have Lasso on, first of all. And what it does is it pulls multiple ads. Mine is only at so the ads will just follow you around. So it helps with some crowd control because you can move the ads where you want them to go, but it doesn't stun them. So you're just pulling groups of ads. So it tethers the boss. Mine is only at rank 81. Let's see. So instead of hard taunting, it tethers them. They all drag towards you. Stun and drag for 5 seconds. Additionally, Lasso of Truth will consistently seek out up to 7 additional non-boss targets. While tethered to an enemy, heal for 2% of all damage it receives. So it does do some healing. You're pulling a lot of ads if there's a lot of ads in the raid. Now, would I take up a whole slot, an artifact slot using Lasso? Personally, no. So this is not something that I use. I mean, it's an option because I'm just giving you guys options on things that you can use, but it's not something that I personally use. Now for my battle tank loadout, I do run Demon Fang and I do run Clarion. Would I run these in a raid? I wouldn't run them in a raid. For solos, yeah, I run these. Every 12 seconds, hit an enemy with a weapon attack, empowers your weapon to deal additional damage to your primary target and restores power over time for the next 6 hits. Let's skip down to the bottom. Additionally, when affected by a shield and hitting an enemy, restoration is increased by 10% and precision by 6%. So your restoration is increased by 6%, which means increased by 6%, 10%, which also helps with the healing. And then I run the Clarion because when empowered by a weapon buff, targets above 95%. When you are empowered by a weapon buff, targets above 95% health healed. Restorative Melody receives a shield for 12 seconds. So, I can't switch to it right now because I didn't do my skill points. On my battle tank loadout, I'll just show you real quick because it's easier to show you than to just tell you. This is what I'm running on my battle tank. So I have the Mystical symbol of 7, I have Clarion, I have Demon Fang, and Quizlet for additional damage since battle tank is about damage. But see, there's a shield. So here's an additional shield that you could run. Would I run it in group content as far as like 7-man? Probably not. You could. I don't. But it gives you an additional shield, and running solos and maybe some easier alerts, you could run this, and it's definitely viable. It's something that you can use because of the shield, and it's also the healing of it. So, and it's a group shield, so 4 players. So in alert, this is definitely something that you can run, and it's viable and it works. You just have to work on the battle tank loadout. But that's something for a different time because that's not really what's important right now. What is important is knowing what you can do for actual tanking. What's important. So those are all the artifacts that you could use for tanking. I know it's kind of a lot. You just have to see, we have 5 artifacts now, so it's a big investment in time to grab these artifacts. Yeah, you can use nth metal detectors to grab a lot of extra nth metal, but there's still a lot of time involved in that. And artifacts are very important, so you just have to figure out what's going to be your main priority. If I had to choose, if it was 3, it'd be easier, but Mystical Symbol of 7 is definitely one of the first ones that I personally would say to go ahead and level up, if you could, because it's just beneficial for every power. If you're, cooldowns of a shield, Manacles works great. So, that's beneficial for you, but there's also an option there. I don't know if it's number 2 option. It's one that you really have to think of your play style and what works well for you to see if it's even something that you want to level up. So definitely something to think about. There's a lot to think about when it comes to tanking. Survivability is key, important, and something that we have to do, and these artifacts will help me to survive as much as possible. So there's instances where I do die, so I'm not, invincible. But, these are the things that you can have. So, hopefully this was helpful to anybody who's thinking about starting tanking. I know it's a big ordeal because you just have so much things that you have to worry about, So just take it one step at a time and do your best. Start at the beginning, pick the ones that work from you, start with one and go from there. So, hope this was enjoyable. Hope it was kind of helpful. If it was, a like would be nice. I appreciate you guys, and thanks for everything. Thanks for watching.